JRPGs have had it rough the last decade or so, with only a few titles over the last few years showing any semblance of the long-past golden days of the genre. It can be hard for a new game to find its footing in today's market. With Child of Light, Ubisoft Montreal attempts to traverse past the fields of mediocrity with a unique watercolor art style and a combat system based around timing and interruptions. Does it emerge on the other end with games such as Kuni or Xenoblade Chronicles, or get lost somewhere in the journey along the way? With the strong point of JRPGs typically being their story and characters, it's odd that Child of Light has a hint of a central story and fairly limited character interaction. You'll play as Aurora, a duchess in 1895 Austria whom after her mother dies goes into a deep sleep where she's later awakened in a fictional kingdom of Lemuria. There she must unite the sun and moon, fulfilling her destiny and restoring the world to its former glory. She's also accompanied by a fallen star elemental named Igniculus. You control him with the right stick or a second player and helps Aurora on her journey by gathering orbs, aiding in her combat, and solving puzzles. It all comes off as ethereal and surreal, with little truly answered or resolved in any meaningful way. But considering the almost dreamlike aesthetic and disembodied nature of the rest of the game, it feels appropriate. After the fairy tale comes to a close, questions over the story's interpretation will set in, creating a deeper experience than a more direct, logical narrative. Combat is typically the weakest point of any traditional JRPG. With a system routed in a time where hardware and software constraints limited interaction, turn-based or delayed combat systems at times can feel archaic and act as an unwelcome hindrance in progression through the story. Child of Light attempts to remedy this problem by introducing a creative interruption mechanic by actively controlling one of the characters, Igniculus, to slow down enemy turns or heal your character to gain control of the fight. Winning battles ultimately comes down to controlling the rhythm of the battle and timing your character attacks to interrupt the enemies without falling behind, as they'll do the same to you. It's an interesting mechanic combined with traditional elemental weaknesses and abilities, but it can wear itself out quickly due to constraints within the game. With the interruption system in mind, the choice has been made that the most enemies at any time you'll encounter during a battle is 3, limiting battle variety. Every encounter will be most difficult during the first few turns, and after concentrating attention on destroying one of the 3 initial enemies, it's easy to gain control and breeze through the remainder of any fight. That being said, this even applies on the hard difficulty, and the game should initially be played on hard, as it can be mind-numbingly easy on normal. It's an interesting mechanic, and at times can be challenging to gain control of a battle and keep your characters from constantly being interrupted, but the lack of variety in the encounters quickly teaches you how to contend with everything you fight early on. You'll also meet a host of characters throughout your journey who will either offer you side quests that can be completed for combative upgrades, or join your party bringing their expertise in magic or hand-to-hand combat to the battlefield alongside Aurora's, enhancing the combat slightly, although only 2 party members are allowed on the battlefield at any time. The additional characters will occasionally chatter between battles, filling out their shallow backstories. Dialogue through the entirety of the game is mostly done in a poetic manner, with an abundance of rhymes and unusual sentence structure that brings even more additional personality and style, but at times can be distracting when certain words are meant to be mispronounced to accommodate the rhyming composition and can come off as lazy. As with its beautiful and immersive artwork, the music is absolutely enchanting, with one of the more memorable central themes I've heard recently. In between the solemn world pieces, the music will intensify for enemy encounters, and similar to the Dark Souls franchise, the bosses tend to have a truly opulent presence despite the relative ease of some of them. Exploring the world is a unique experience, and the unconventional 2D approach to a JRPG is welcomed and encourages exploration and puzzle solving. While there are a few puzzles, they're typically split into a few light and shadow games using Igniculus, or pressure plates that are suppressed by moving a weight onto them. Also, by seizing an enemy from behind to initiate an encounter, you'll be rewarded with a preemptive surprise attack. That being said, they'll also gain the same advantage if they successfully ambush you. Afterwards, you'll be able to recover between battles by using Igniculus to gather gold and blue orbs in correct order that are scattered throughout the world, or by having him hover over Aurora and illuminate her with his healing light. Physical progression is handled through a level system that allows you to allocate points accrued from completing battles and picking one of 3 separate leveling trees, each focused around a few of the character's abilities, as well as enhancing complementing passive stats. Gear is customized for battles through oculi, which are crystals found throughout the world and after battles. They can be combined, mixed, and upgraded to add things such as additional elemental damage and protection, or increase your character's speed in combat. Additionally, passive upgrades in the form of Stardust can be applied to any member of your party to give that character an additional advantage beyond their level. Child of Light is a sensory smorgasbord. Few forms of entertainment reach the level of endearing beauty that it does. However, its repetitious combat and flimsy character development hold it back from being a great title. At 12 to 15 hours, it certainly provides a great value and was an overall enjoyable experience. While Child of Light doesn't quite make it to the promised land of great JRPGs of the past, it manages to get further than most, and offers some new mechanics and a stunning trip along the way.
JRPGs have had it rough the last decade or so, with only a few titles over the last few years showing any semblance of the long past golden days of the genre. It can be hard for a new game to find its footing in today's market. With Child of Light, Ubisoft Montreal attempts to traverse past the fields of mediocrity with a unique watercolor art style and a combat system based around timing and interruptions. Does it emerge on the other end with games such as Kuni or Xenoblade Chronicles? Or get lost somewhere in the journey along the way?